Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome, dear viewers, brand new episode of Up to Date, coming to you live from the Kingdom of Humanity and the city of Riyadh. When it came to us now last week in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia was enriched. There are a lot of events happening around the kingdom, especially if we go to the Behance events happening in the western region. Today as well happened in the eastern region within the Behance, the western region, with Tawteen as well. There are a couple of events happening from that side. In Riyadh, many events happening this week. After tomorrow, the 3rd of December, starts AHMED. It's a two-day event that's happening on the 3rd of December, the 4th of December. A lot of speakers. It's all about content in the online and the enrichment of the content. There'll be sessions about producers, from creators, and the people who are enhancing the technology regarding everything to do with IT, as well as the International Day for Support or for Volunteering. The International Day for Volunteering, and a lot of things to do with volunteering happen on the 5th of December. There's an event happening late night, 5th of December, supposedly starting after Maghrib prayer until the end of the night. And with it, they'll be talking about volunteering in different fields. One of the fields that we'll be talking about and highlighting is the field of technology. Another thing happening and will be opening just tomorrow from the 2nd until the 5th of December, happening the exhibition of Ibtikar. Ibtikar, with the support of Mohiba and a lot of organizations in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It spotlights or shed lights on when it comes to technologies for the youngsters. And supposedly you'll find a lot, when we talk about the Intel Science Engineering Fair and a lot of the people who participate there, well, a lot of those people who are participating, or the students who are participating in those events, come from Mohiba. And Mohiba do organize some of the events such as Ibtikar and other events around the year. So this week, quite enriched with a lot of technology events happening. Next week we'll be having reports from those events, inshallah, by the will of Almighty Allah. And when it comes to us today, now, today we'll be talking about intellectual property. Intellectual property, one of the biggest things that are violated in the Arabic world, and yet one of the most protected things in the Western world. A lot of regulations, a lot of rules are implemented internationally, and yet in the Arab world, in the Middle East, more and more rules are being implemented and more regulations are being, let's say, ruled and judged. So supposedly within, I think, 5 to 10 years, we'll have everything hopefully being perfected. And of course, it's all empowered by IT. So we're absolutely happy to be having here in the episode Mr. Ahmed HAMDY Sayyid. And welcome to the show. And you are an IT expert.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's absolutely great having you here. So first of all, let us explain to the people, or put a definition on intellectual property.
Yeah.
What is intellectual property?
Well, it's a good question to start with, to speak about the intellectual property and to define it. To answer such a question, we can say that the Internet Society have been discussing this part for a long period of time. And we can say that there are large and vast debates around the world during the last few decades. The central point of speech and discussions that happen between the people everywhere in the world is concerning on a very important point, which is the regulations of the intellectual property. And if we want to discuss this point, I want to divide my speech according to 3 parts, or depending on 3 parts. The first one of which is saying something about the intellectual property, and number 2, saying something or answering the questions, what are the regulations in general, and what are the regulations if we want to link it to what's called the intellectual property. And the last question in this point is why do we invent the the regulations for the intellectual property. As we said before now, and as you said, the topic sentence is the intellectual property becomes one of the most important points in our daily life now. And the point that we need to learn ourselves, to learn our kids, to learn our brothers and our students what's the meaning of the intellectual property. It gives the right to the people who invent something or do something. But here, we come to the central point that happened between the people, or that the people discuss it between each other, which are the regulations. What are the regulations? Well, in a very simple way, to answer this question, we can say that the regulations are the limits, the statement, or the documents we use or we bought for our people in order to teach them what are the rights and duties in the society. What are they going to do in the future and how they can do it. That is the regulations in a very simple way. Another point is why we invented these regulations. We invented it, as a matter of fact, in order to face and stand in front of what happen every day from the violations and the counterfeiting for the people's work and inventions. Okay, we invented it in order to mandate all the violations that happen every day, everywhere. And you know, I like to say an important point here in this point, which is the agreement that happened between the United States of America and the European Union is speaking about or placed some important rules. The first one of which is the rights are to be alone. The rights are to be alone. And we need to know that the most civilized people are those who must evaluate the intellectual properties. And we need to add another point. What's this? It's speaking about the triangle of invention. We can draw a triangle that depends on 3 parts. Okay? The first one is speaking about the regulations. And the second part of the triangle is speaking about what is called safeness. And the last part is invention. What this triangle refers to. The first one, the regulations, when each member of the society knows his rights and his duties and knows that if he goes beyond his limits, he will find a punishment of any kind that push him back. This leads to a case of safeness in the society. This case of safeness leads to the invention, the base for the invention. And without this case of safeness, we will not find invention in the society. Because, also in a simple way, why do we invent? Why do we work too hard? Why we connect the day to night if we know that we will not use or make the best use of our work and our effort all the night? That is the point about the intellectual property.
That is brilliant. Now, one thing about intellectual properties, there aren't a lot of regulations in the Middle East to accommodate those. I mean, not a lot of things that will protect any personal, let's say, product or personal, let's say, a production that available or that exists in this region. What should be done, before we go to the next point, what should be done regarding intellectual properties in the Middle East?
Yeah. The intellectual property is different, and the regulations for the intellectual property and protection, its protection is different according to the place. Good. So you can find different regulations in the developing countries from that's found in the developed societies. I think that the people who live, or most of the people who live in the developed societies, knows very well what's required from them, knows very well their duties and their rights. But I think we need to improve and to make a stress on this point in our society, to learn the people how to respect each other society, how to respect each other rights. And what's worth being mentioned in this point is that we can say that the essence of the Islamic culture is that to teach the people how to respect each other positions and each other rights. The people who live in the developed countries are using it on a large scale. Why? Because you can find in some cases costly programs, but in our countries, costly programs and costly files about intellectual programs. But here in our societies, no, we cannot find a lot of people can afford the fundamental by which they can defend their intellectual property.
That's brilliant. And for the thing is, I mean, if we're going in the IT world, there are systems and regulations that would protect any individual, regardless of the country that he lives in. Yet, having those regulations still will make a lot of violations exist in the same region.
Violations are
so how should a person who does create content, a person who does have a lot of rights for the content that he's producing, how can he protect all this content online within the IT area?
That's very good. Okay, now we want to speak about 2 parts. One relates to the institutes and one relates to the individuals. The individuals should learn the good manners of dealing the intellectual property in general, whether it was on the internet, the electronic one, or in their daily life. They should learn that very well. And on the other part, we can speak about the institutions of the government. If anyone who can face these kinds of counterfeiting of violations can complain about that. And we have different parts to complain about that, whether it was internationally or locally. Here, locally, we have a department found in the Ministry of Culture and Information that receives this kind of complaints. And they discuss it, they open the files, they speak about it, and they work hard to solve such problems. And internationally, we have more than organization doing that. We have an organization that's called YIPO, that's the World Intellectual Property Organization, or ELBATAT, that deals with such kinds of complaints that people face everywhere, anywhere, every time, anywhere.
Brilliant. One of the people who are watching, we just asked the question regarding what is the difference between intellectual property and copyrights.
Yeah, okay. The intellectual property, also, if we want to define it in a simple way, we can say it refers to the limits of the people who can use their new ideas, their thoughts, their inventions.
Perfect.
How can we give them the idea to control this point and to give them the right to tell us who are the people shall or shall not use these inventions or these new ideas? But the copyright refers to any part of writing, any kind of writing, and the rights that should be fulfilled for it in order to keep it safe during the time.
That's brilliant. Now, if we're talking about, let's go in details into the actual authorities that have the right to control and to protect people, or to put the regulations, let's say in the beginning.
Yeah.
Who is authorized to put the regulations in any country?
Yeah, it's a good question, another good question. We can't say that. For the people who are responsible for facing such problems, maybe some people, if you ask them this question, some would say that the government may be responsible for that. And some would say that some of the general and big companies of the world may be responsible for that. But in order to be honest and frank, I'd like to say that each one of us should be responsible for that. All the members of the society should be responsible for that. And that's why I said before, we should learn, we should teach our students and our kids and our colleagues, brothers, any person, you know, we should learn him how to respect each other's rights.
That is perfect. Now, I mean, if we're talking of, let's say, take some examples about intellectual properties, we go in online, and not, I mean, just copyrights in general, not only intellectual properties. The thing is, I mean, online there are a lot of systems and tools. If you're using any domain, if you're using any service, or let's say any social service as well, to take it into context, if you take any social service, there are a lot of ways for you to protect yourself. If we're talking first, I mean, for example, if you're using Twitter and there's somebody else using your actual name and your real name identity, or stealing your actual identity and trying to make tweets about it, or using it or presenting you falsely online, easily there are cases they can file online. You can prove that you are the real person, and all other accounts and everything, other people will go, I mean, to court if the I mean, their case didn't stand. And supposedly, I mean, your rights will be protected. And if you look to the leading services around the world, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, a lot of people are protecting their rights there, because as well, I mean, anything you do on those networks, it's your own right. You've got the right and the actual, I mean, property. You own that property. You own that idea, and you own that thought. So with the emergence of all, let's say, social media happening here in the Middle East, do you think that our personal responsibility is becoming harder to protect everything that goes with intellectual properties?
I think it becomes harder because we don't have a lot of people concerning this point, dealing it in a good way. We don't have a lot of people have the sense of the intellectual property. Okay, so I can say the people in our society need to learn how to deal each other, depending on the copyrights, or how to respect the copyrights for the other people. That's what I want to say about this point, the copyright and the people. But what I want to add now is that if the people knows very well that their rights are preserved and their copyrights are saved in time, this will make them more dare to use the real identity with the different kind of the media. You know, I think we have about 60% of the people using for the YouTube or for the internet in general, using to these sites under a nickname. They don't use the real identity because they don't trust that the rights can be preserved for them.
That is brilliant. Now we got our first report in today's episode. We'll go with that report. After that, we'll be back and we'll be talking more about intellectual properties and who is the authority that should be protecting you. So stay with us. يعطيك العافية يا رب.
We are here with Mr. John Lee, the president of this function here. If you can tell us a little bit about what kind of event are you holding here tonight?
Anyway, thank you very much for your inviting. Today, we will launch LG's newest smartphone named LG G2. Actually, we already launched these products in States last August, and also we already launched in all European countries. In Middle East, we are number 3rd. 1 week ago, we launched in UAE, Dubai, and 2 days ago, we launched in Turkey. This is our 3rd time we launched our G2 new product in Saudi Arabia.
What are your expectations for this market? Do you see any potential?
Actually, you know, the G2 new product is, you know, the highest, the flagship model, which is most powerful function we have. And also, this year, our target aiming is more than 100,000 sets we want to sell in this market.
So, if you can tell us briefly about the G2 technology and what does it bring to the new to the table?
Okay, now in the world there are lots of the smartphone, but if you can see our product in the function is most, you know, the advanced technology we have. Firstly, you know, this camera is 13 megapixels we have, but also this one ISO functions. It means that almost you may think is digital camera. And second one is, you know, we hide, you know, all the power keys and then volume keys in backside. So this is really, you know, the convenient for all the customers. And also, lastly, I want to emphasize one more thing, is that this one battery life is 3,000 milliamperes, which is most strong things, you know, in these categories in the world.
We are here with Mr. Leith, and first of all, we'd like to welcome you to our show. And if you can tell us a little bit about this new G2 technology and what it makes it different than what people are used to at this time.
Thank you very much for inviting me for the show. This is very honored to be the part of the show. Now, the LG G2 is one of the first kind. Until now, there was nothing like this. The phone is now, we have done extensive studies globally to all the people, how they use the phones, what people are expecting to be returned with how they use. We learn from the people and we implemented the things that we have learned, such as the rear key. The rear key, when people collect the phone, they put the hands in this way. So we signified, we emphasized on the index finger where it needs, where it stays, and we found out by placing the buttons on the back of the case, people can use with other hands on one hand with the maximum usage.
So what kind of interaction do you expect from the Saudi market? Do you think that people would adopt such ideas as like G2 and the rear buttons?
It's going to be a new concept. It's a new concept. The new concept means sometimes scary, but sometimes it could be very approaching as well. We are here to announce to people that new type, the new approach is here. And by that, the people in Saudi Arabia can be appreciated with what LG has learned from the people.
Amazing. And do you think that the share of this phone in the market would be to your expectations? Do you have good expectations for the market?
Yes, of course. We have just launched, today's launching. We have actually introduced to the product to the market just a couple of days ago, and already we are seeing the responses from the market. We are expecting to gain some market share of the high-ends, which is the major portion in Saudi Arabia, and I believe LG G2 can be the part of the runner-up on the high-end phones.
We are here with Mr. Muhammad Ali, Regional Manager for the mobile products here in the Kingdom, who is going to tell us a little bit more about the G2 technology and what is it bringing to the market. So, sir, if you can explain to our viewers a little bit more about the G2 technology and what is it exactly.
G2 is an amazing product. LG made, LG in smartphone history, LG made many mobiles. This mobile G2 is the ever made LG any mobile. This is the best one. Okay, and already proven in Korea market, US market, already customer accepted. And I'm very sure that in Saudi market, people also will accept this one.
So, what are your, especially that you are the regional manager, you are familiarized with the culture and the different requirements of the consumers. How do you see the consumer accepting changes of the button to the rear and the G2 technology, especially that it's new to them?
Actually, G2 is based on, we say learning from you. And we made this mobile for human. Okay, and I'm very sure in this technology, Saudi people also will enjoy, like the rear key function. Especially this is from human. Okay.
Amazing. So, if we talk about the expectations that you have for this local market, do you think that there's going to be a great demand on such product?
Sure. Already is proven in the US. So I'm very sure in Saudi they will like the new technology, the new thing which smartphone never have. And the first time LG brings something new technology in smartphone industry. So this will really enjoy Saudi people.
We are here with Mr. Salman As-Sabban, who's going to talk to us a little bit about the G2 technology and how it's the expectation for it in the local market.
Assalamu alaikum. First, LG has made a lot of researches regarding the G2 before it developed it, and after developing it, they found that special features have been developed inside it to be easier for the consumers to interact with the phone, such as the rear key, which is the first in the world for any phone to have the rear key behind the phone. Also, it uses 2.7 inches wide screen. Also, the screen is 5.2, the measurement of the whole screen. Additionally, we can talk about some other features such as Talk to Me, Text Link, and other features.
Amazing. So, what are your expectations for the local consumers regarding all those new features and technologies? Do you think that they might adopt such technologies?
Actually, after the research results that such as international markets, US and Europe had succeeded, a lot of consumers has liked the G2 phone, the smartphone. Also, we have expectation that most of the consumers here will accept it, especially for the features that have the G2.
Welcome back, dear viewers, and tonight we're talking about intellectual properties, and we continue with Mr. Ahmed. Now, we talked about a couple of things in the beginning of the episode, so let us now talk about the rights. I mean, the rights for each individual that goes online, as users, as viewers, as bloggers, as anything. As a user of the internet, what rights do we have?
Yeah, the rights we have as users for the internet is that you get the information you like, where you like, when you like. That are the rights you need or you expect as a user for the internet anywhere. But here at this point, we have some complicated points. We can speak about the people are looking for the information they like or they need anywhere, and that's not right. All of us know now that we have a lot of the falsified websites. So if you want to get any kind of information or a piece of information, you need to be very careful about the location you are visiting, about the site you are trying to retrieve your information through which. We need to learn how and we need to teach also our generations how to get the information from the trusted website. Visiting any kind or any sites may result in a big problem later.
That is perfect. Now, if we're talking about reporting violations, I mean, usually when violations do occur in intellectual properties, we got to report them.
Yeah.
Now, who is the concerned, let's say, part or the service or the party?
We said about that we have two parts, whether it was internationally or locally. And we said the department that's working on this part here in the kingdom is that one that's found in the Ministry of Information and Culture. And we said also the people are working there in a good way. They open the files and they read it and they try to do their effort, to exert their effort in a good way in order to answer or to solve these problems. Outside or abroad, we can say internationally,
Perfect. You
can say that we have different organizations that do this task. One of them, as we said before, it's the World WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organizations, or LA, that's found in different parts of the world and have different branches in the world. You can know that if you want to know something about the statement of this regulation exactly, anybody of the watchers can visit the link of the statement relates to the conference of the intellectual or the Internet Society, the intellectual property that happened in 2012 or the last year. That happened in Ping, I remember, in the city of Ping. If you visit the site and if you read the statement that's found about the conference, you will find something interesting about these problems.
That's brilliant. And the thing is, I mean, the interesting thing is usually people are either scared of filing for cases of violations, or they just don't care. Although it is a must, it's a right for them to file a case against anybody who violates their intellectual property. Isn't that true?
Yeah, I think the people who are working with the internet, in a way, you know, the internet became today, or the internet society has an increasing part of our today's culture. Everybody uses the internet today. Our kids, even the kids, the children, the youth, the old people, different age in the society uses the internet. So because we have a lot of applications for these people, from the kids, the school work, the online gaming, any kind of applications, even for the adult, the social websites and the internet. All of us use this internet, and that's why we need to learn something about protecting ourselves. We have a lot of piracy that may happen. You need to put a system for yourself, to defend yourself. And here, I have an important question. Forgive me for answering your question with a question.
Please.
But I want to ask you a question. This question, I asked myself these questions many times before. Why don't we learn our kids or our students how to, what's the meaning of the intellectual property? It's not a big term for them. They can learn, they can understand, and they can practice it in their work, because most of the work of the students today is on the internet. We ask our students to do their homework and schoolwork during the internet. They invent something, they do something. They need to know how to protect what they invented. So why don't we learn our students how to respect each other's relations using the internet as an example for that?
True.
Why don't we do that? It's an important point, and we can use it as a very important example to learn them. Protecting ourselves and protecting our rights is something very important.
That is absolutely brilliant. Now we got a second report in tonight's episode. And before we go to that report, let me say, I mean, there were this weekend, happening here, internationally there was the official launch of the PS4, the PlayStation 4, the portable console, not the portable console, but the actual new console, new generation console from PlayStation. The thing is, with the release and, of course, the availability of the devices around the world, there are some comments of course, I mean, failures in some devices. The warehouses of Amazon had some issues, and there were quantities that failed, but I mean, of course, I mean, replacements were directly issued. One thing to note that PlayStation 4 is available in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia starting the 13th of December this month, after 12 days. And internationally, it was already, available last month, in the middle of last month. Xbox One, there doesn't have a date yet, on the product for Saudi Arabia, for the Middle East in particular. Internationally, it was released as well, a while ago. It was like 2 weeks ago it was released internationally. So the thing is, with the new generation of consoles, there are a lot of things that we should be expecting. A scale up in the actual graphics of designs, graphics, designs, and capabilities of games, the size of games. If we just start going 20 years ago when games were like half a megabyte, now they reach up to 50 gigabytes. It's just a single game, and it's filled up with actors and stuff. Budgets starting from $10 or I think $20 it was to make a game 20 years ago. Now it costs up to $300 million. That is the cost of Gran Turismo 6. So $300 million just to make a game. But the sales and everything to do with the sales, Call of Duty did reach $1 billion within the sales of its latest title, although the title flunked and it wasn't that great. And so it tells you something. It tells us something about everything that goes on within the gaming side, the entertainment side, and it's an industry by its own. Portable gaming was doubted 2 years ago. Now it is one of the leading things. Gameloft did announce its winnings of its profits of the year, and the first and the second quarter, and it raised to 52 million euros. So it tells us something about the changes happening in the technology world and the entertainment industry related to the technology world. Now we go to that second report that you're talking about, so stay with us.
I am Alex Mifsud, founder and chief executive of Exaris Systems, a UK company that specializes in payments technology.
Welcome with us. Can you tell us, please, about this agreement?
Yes, we have signed today an agreement with AHMED, which is a Saudi Arabian company that is incubated in the Badir incubation program. AHMED's mission is to bring e-commerce infrastructure into Saudi Arabia to make electronic payments and the buying of things on the internet more possible to more people in Saudi Arabia.
Does that mean that this kind of agreement will bring accessibility, or if I may say it right, usability to Saudi youth?
Yes. Saudi society has a very large youth population and a very high participation in the internet by Saudi youth. At the moment, not everybody is able to make payments on the internet, and that means they can look, they can talk, they can listen, but they cannot buy. And one of the missions of AHMED is to make it more possible for Saudi youth to also participate more fully in the internet, to also be able to buy things, and at a later point in time also to become themselves entrepreneurs, to be able to also sell things on the internet, to create the e-commerce merchants of the future in Saudi Arabia.
Actually, this agreement is exclusive partnership with one of the leaders in the UK for the virtual and payment cards. We built this agreement on the core of transferring the know-how and technology to the Saudi and Middle East market. Part of our agreement is to transfer the know-how by transferring our employees to the research center of Exaris, train them there and give them all they need from know-how prospect. Also, we have internship program for the universities and college students to send them to Exaris for the know-how and the experience that they should gain.
And welcome back, dear viewers, with Up to Date. And now when we're talking about intellectual properties, we're talking about rights that are being updated all the time, that are being improved all the time. And one thing about those rights, I mean, as our guest, Mr. Ahmed, did highlight, that the rights get updated most of the times. And if you want to get the latest of the copies and the announcements and the links, you should always go to the websites of the regulatory authorities, regulation authorities that usually issue those. Now, in the Middle East, are there anything similar to that authorize and just get those intellectual property regulations out?
Yeah, we have. We have in the Middle East some organizations that are working on this part, and we have here in KSA, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And we should have that because, Saudi Arabia may be considered one of the most, or one of the biggest societies who are using the internet and the modern devices of technology, such as the smartphones or the laptops, the different means of technology. And that's why they need to find an identity that defend them and protect their rights for the kids, for the adults, and any person in the society. We found, and I gave the example for that for the Ministry of Information and Technology, or the Culture and Information Technology Ministry, that faces these problems that happens to the people who are living in the country.
One of the well-known international agencies that usually give news presses and news announcements. It's a news agency. One of the international ones was filed. There was a case filed against that news agency when two users of Twitter that filed cases against them for the agency using their pictures, the pictures that they took about certain events that happened around the world, and the two guys who took the pictures won the case, and they won $1.5 million in those cases. So it tells you that if you run after your right, if you run after everything to
you will get it.
You will get it.
You will get it.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's right. We have a rule for that. If you run after your right, someday we'll get it. Maybe not sooner, maybe later, but when you struggle for it, you will get your fight. And we find this rule at the base for the world, anywhere, not only for the intellectual property. I'm speaking in general about this point. It's very important. So we need to place this point in the souls of our kids in order to learn, to not only to ask their rights, but to do not forget it in course of time, to have an intention for getting the rights, even if it was after a long period of time. That is very important to learn them. For them dealing this internet or the intellectual properties, they also need to be observed during using these devices, because if you left it for a line, if you left them or you give them the complete freedom, they may get be hurted, or they may be developed in a bad way, or in the way that we do not desire.
You're absolutely right. There are reports and more reports coming in. There are a lot of things happening in the episode. One thing to highlight as well, going to international things, regarding the CES, happened in the beginning of January. Usually every year it happens in CES in Las Vegas. Within the days of CES this year, happening from the 7th until the 11th, major announcements from all companies, technology-related companies around the world, they do give their new announcements. What we are expecting this year is our announcements from Samsung, Sony, and Sony Mobiles, Samsung Mobiles as well, and when it comes to other major leaders in the technology field. It's not only about announcing new devices, but it's about announcing new technologies. So augmented reality, they have a lot of emphasis about it in the CES of 2013. The next year, 2014, we think that augmented reality will get more emphasis, as well as when it comes to bendable screens, and as well, portable devices that have bendable screens, and usually getting out of the box with the usual regular shape of devices. So supposedly, curved screens will be a very popular trend in 2014. Wearable gear, we are hinting that, of course, after the glass of Google, Samsung, LG, and Sony, all of them will be having their own version of glass, as well as the wearable accessories. When it comes to the gear, the watch, the one available from Sony and Samsung at the moment, will be available from Apple, as well as LG and other major manufacturer in the world. So this is something very positive to look forward to in CES. Other things happening in CES regarding the technologies, regarding security, Most of them are related to the mobile industry, but other industries as well. The thing is, within the days of CES, it's a congress. I mean, it's a gathering of everything to do with technology. A lot of say plan changers and changers of the games are there regarding technology. So we hope all the success, and hopefully we'll be giving you a lot of reports from that field. Now, when it comes to us, third report, we'll go with that. Then we'll come back to conclude our episode. So stay with us.